So I want to tell you about the two times that I quit going to church. The first was when I was just a little kid, and my family had just moved to this small town in western New York. The town was rural and conservative and white and very Christian, and my family was like none of those things. And we moved there because my parents found this house there that they could afford that was surrounded by the most magical woods they'd ever been in. And so not long after we got there, it became clear that the town kind of revolved around the church. And so when the job of Sunday school teacher opened up, my mom volunteered. And I remember being thrilled about this. My mom was this Puerto Rican labor lawyer from the Bronx, and she didn't look or behave like any mom I'd ever seen. And so I was very excited that she was signed up to do something so like classically mom-like. And the first week was great. She was fun and cool, and I felt like the luckiest kid there. And then the next week she got fired. And she got fired because they said she gave the wrong answer to a question. And the question was, a kid had asked, "Where does God live?" And my mom answered, "God lives everywhere. God's in the lake and the trees and in you and in me and everywhere." And when they asked her not to come back, they said, "We're Methodists. We don't believe God lives everywhere. He's in the sky." And so like I said, my mom was this Puerto Rican woman from the Bronx, and so she'd been treated this way in upstate New York many times before this, but I hadn't, so I was sort of quietly heartbroken by it. And when my mom noticed that, she suggested that we start our own Sunday school, just the two of us down in the woods. And so that's what we did. Every Sunday we'd walk down, sort of past the barn and through the field, and where the grasses got taller and taller and then turned to sumac, and we'd pick our way through rose thorns and stumble through spider webs out to where the underbrush kind of opened up and the trees towered, these giant oaks and maples, and we'd see like rabbits darting through the bamboo, and we'd keep going down around to the creek where the same great blue heron would take off from the same place with the same like reluctance every Sunday morning. And we'd find some place to sit and we'd pray, which to my mom meant read poems aloud and write haikus. Or sometimes we'd just try to sit quietly enough for animals to come out, which they always did. And I don't know how many weeks or months we did this for, but I don't feel like I can overstate how much these Sunday school sessions in the woods with my mom formed me. So I didn't think about going back to church for a while, not until middle school, when I suddenly and disastrously fell in love. And if you've ever been a middle schooler who has fallen in love with somebody who doesn't really know who you are, you know that it's an uphill battle. My first little success was in English class, where I wrote a short story and she read it and she told me that she liked it. And so I wrote a dozen more, and I gave them all to her under the guise of peer editing. She was a writer too, and she was a dancer and a poet and a painter and a singer, and I don't think she would have called herself any of those things. She was just always making stuff, and she just loved sounds and words and beauty in a way that I had no idea anybody could, and in a way that I don't think very many people do. she was constantly brimming over with that love, and she radiated it. Every day we talked for hours on AOL Instant Messenger. Our only problem, sort of the fatal flaw in our relationship, was that in person we never spoke at all. Anyway, so eventually I heard from one of her friends that she kind of liked me. So I said I liked her back, and then one day, miraculously, she was at my house, which I still can't remember why. I never invited anybody over, but she was there and we were alone, and I wanted to do the most impressive, beautiful thing I could think of, and so I asked her to go for a walk down through the woods. It was late spring in western New York when everything is green and lush, and the afternoon light is hazy and honeyed and warm. And we walked down through the woods in complete silence, all the way down to the creek. And it was there at the creek where she turned to me and she told me that she always felt super awkward with me. And she was sorry, but she only wanted to be friends. And and so just like that, without ever getting to date this girl that I was in love with, I got dumped. And so after she left, I just took off running. I went farther into the woods than I'd ever been before, so far that I came to the end of the woods, to the highway, and then I crossed the highway, and I kept running down through the town cemetery and down through the town golf course into the center of our town. And in the center of our town, I ran into my best friend in the world, and I remember being so relieved to see him, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him what had happened. It felt like both a great love story and completely pathetic. And I promise you, it still feels that way. This whole story feels that way to me. And I don't know why I'm telling you it. August 16th felt like a long way away when I wrote it. But it feels like simultaneously like the central story of my life, and also just not even really a story. And I think if I was sitting one-on-one with anybody here or in like a little group of people, I would never say any of this. But anyway, after that, for months, I was embarrassed and heartsick, and I was always away on AOL Instant Messenger, and and my away message was always dashboard confessional lyrics. And and then eventually, at some point during this stretch of sorrow, I found out that she was going on a mission trip with the church, and so I signed up too. And this was kind of a breakthrough, because on the mission trips we spent so much time together that I was able to sort of move past my creepy longing for her and just be friends with her. And I discovered in these moments that we found a lot of the same things funny, including a lot of things that nobody else found funny. And there were so many moments on these trips where it was just the two of us just laughing really hard. And I got obsessed with those moments. Not in a weird way, just I came out weird. But anyway, I don't know if I helped any homeless people on these trips, which is what we were supposed to be doing, but I did feel like each trip she and I were getting somewhere. And I felt that way all the way up until our last trip, which was to Toronto. And it was day one, and she and I were in a soup kitchen, and we were both on dish duty, and she told me that she had started dating somebody. And he was older, and he was smart and muscly and undeniably cool. And I realized then that I had been completely wrong about the whole thing, that she really did just want to be friends, and that's what we were. So that was the second time I stopped going to church. But to call that the end of the story would be small-minded. It'd be like saying that God lives up in the sky. I still don't really go to church, but my sort of spiritual religious search is very much ongoing, and I hope it will continue to be. And the love story didn't really end there either, even though I thought it had. A year after that, we were cast as husband and wife in the school play. We were Mr. and Mrs. Keller in the very, very serious drama, The Miracle Worker. The story of how Helen Keller learned to read and write. And I was supposed to be this stern, serious Southern father. And I really wanted to do a good job, but I just couldn't help but spend most of every rehearsal just trying to make her laugh. I wasn't really trying to win her over anymore. I just loved laughing with her. And I can remember this one rehearsal where we were both just crying with tears of laughter. And then the scene started. And we were at the dining room table, and I was supposed to throw a plate across the table and yell, "Damn it, Katie, she can't see." That's the Southern accent that I prepared for the role. And so the play was really bad. But by the end of it, she'd broken up with her boyfriend, and we were headed out on our first date. We went to Applebee's. It was early winter in Western New York when everything turns gray. The slush on the ground was gray, and the strip mall was gray, and the sky was low and gray. And to me, on that night, it felt luminous and endless, and it seemed entirely possible that God lives everywhere.